Good evening, all of you. I welcome you all to the webinar for the premiere of Happiness Class. I will begin by introducing the film to all of you briefly. Happiness Class explores the world of children and teachers in three government schools in Delhi as they make their way through the newly introduced happiness curriculum. Children talk of their fears, joys, and stresses, and teachers share their pedagogic experiences in the context of larger world that both inhabit to present a complex picture of the possibilities and challenges that lie in implementing a curriculum like this. In an increasingly competitive world, struggling with the challenges of conflict, segregation, and polarization, the film asks what the pursuit of happiness really means. The film has been funded by the Foundation for Universal Responsibility of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. FUR is a not-for-profit, non-sectarian, non-denominational organization and has a special interest in social and emotional learning in schools. I would now like to introduce Rajiv Mehrotra. Rajiv Mehrotra is the Managing Trustee of the Public Service Broadcasting Trust and Secretary of the FUR. Apart from being a practicing filmmaker and a commissioning editor, he has also been a student of His Holiness the Dalai Lama for several years. I will now hand over to Rajiv.
Thank you, Vedika. I feel very honored and blessed to have worked with a very talented and sensitive, insightful filmmaker like Samina, and to serve as the commissioning editor and producer of this film. I had very little to do with it. It was really Samina's baby, and all we had to do was to leave her alone to produce what has been a very, very moving and insightful and powerful film. I do hope that the close to 100 people who have logged into this have seen this remarkable piece of work. I mean, it's really worth celebrating both as a film and itself, the craft of filmmaking, and for what it says. And I think that it's a few people have the kind of the sensitive touch of Samina to be able to build a film on the voices and experience of children, rather than us adults laying the groundwork for our aspirations for them. And I think that is what makes this particularly insightful. And our interest at the foundation on behalf of His Holiness was really an extension of this commitment of His Holiness that we should try and identify mechanisms where we can lead lives of greater equanimity, courage, and to ride the vicissitudes of life that are inevitable. And how can we nurture those values amongst children and amongst adults and amongst the community without piggybacking on any particular formula or religion or faith, because that in itself is often a source of conflict. And since behavior change is more easily talked about than practiced, this is as much an experiment, a work in progress, where the journey, to use the old cliche, is really the destination. And we're really grateful that the film captures this process so vividly and powerfully. And I want to acknowledge Mekin Maheshwari, who's with us, on the screen, for when we were beginning to run short of money and wanted to, add some animation and embellish the film. He, sort of very generously stepped forth with additional support. And once again, very rarely for people who invest money with a hands-off approach, invested in the outcome rather than the branding which most people are looking for themselves. So thank you, Mekin. And for people in education, he's a familiar name. He's an engineer by training, but has worked in entrepreneurial roles throughout his career. He's founder of the Udyam Learning Foundation that works in developing entrepreneurial mindsets amongst youth from various backgrounds. So thank you, Mekin, for having helped make this film even a better one. And perhaps you could, say a few words before we turn to the filmmaker.
Thank you, Rajiv. I think I think the cause is brilliant. I feel the idea of having a happiness class or a happiness curriculum is path breaking. Our education system has not seen change of this sort. So to capture something like happiness as a subject, I've been super inspired by the idea of having a topic like that, and then to have a curriculum and then a movie to celebrate that, to characterize it, to help people understand it, and to do it in the spirit that it is intended. It's not. I feel we live in a world which tries to oversimplify things and lose nuances, but both the subject, so the happiness curriculum itself, and the movie do a fantastic job of uh, letting the children's voice and appear as they are, without trying to be prescriptive about what needs to be done or what is the one solution to everything in life. So I feel I feel humbled and I feel privileged that I could play a role. So super glad that this has happened. And yeah, back to you, Samina. Thank you.
Thank you, Mekin. I had a long, it doesn't show on this virtual screen, long introduction for Samina, but I didn't want to, since we love her dearly, I didn't want her to unduly blush. And so just suffice to say that she is a remarkable documentary filmmaker. I've had the privilege of working with her in a number of films. She is a writer and a teacher with a special interest in media for and about children. And her work uses the lens of childhood, and that is again the sort of the USP achievement of this film. To articulate who they are, and so that we sort of relatively insensitive adults can begin to get a glimpse of their inner and outer worlds. And so her work has embodied this attempt to reflect the experience of growing up in India. And I think I'm going to post this little bio note of hers on the chat box, so you guys can really get a sense of what a remarkable woman she is. It's over to you, Samina.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rajiv, for that very generous introduction. And thank you both, Mekin and Rajiv, for enabling this film. It has really been actually a privilege for me, because in this last year where we have all been stuck in our homes and witnessing how the world is breaking down, to be able to have a project that you believe in, and to be able to have the privilege of working with people who are more than collaborators, who just sort of also take ownership of the project, is really special. So I would like to just take 2 minutes to acknowledge everybody whose work has actually contributed. The director gets the attention, and I'm the one speaking here, but the film really comes together because there are lots of people working on it in different capacities. And I think it's important that we acknowledge that today. I would have loved if it had been a physical screening, they would have all come up and we would have stood together, shoulder to shoulder. But since we cannot do that, let me at least share with you who they are. So first of all, Tenzin Kunchok, who has really been there for almost the start of the project through, right at the beginning, helping me to decide about iPhone shooting. He has recorded sound, he has shot also with me, he has edited endlessly, editing, re-editing, re-exporting files because I made some mistakes. And all this through this really difficult time of distancing as well as personal loss. Anish Pavitran, who was a cinematographer on the film, as well as he worked also as a recordist. So we kind of everybody did everything. And then Nitasha Kapahi, who also came in as a cinematographer. And I know, Nitasha, you're there, so thank you. Dilip Chowdhury also recorded sound for us. So That's the sort of crew that was out there in the field. And then once we started editing, apart from Tenzin and me, there's the wonderfully talented Alia Sinha, who helped to make the animation such a valuable strand in the film. And we spent so many, like through the sort of lockdown time, we spent so many phone and Zoom conversations we've had to struggling to just get it right and do, what we couldn't do by stepping outside. Um, a very important role was played, I think, by Samira Jain, who came in as consulting editor, and she's been pivotal in shaping the film in its final shape. The music has been done by Shireen Ghosh and by Dean Swag and Kranti K, who have been absolutely wonderful. And there's an original rap song in the film, which they did after watching the rough cut and after conversations that we had about the ideas that should go into this song. It's really special for me because this is the first time that I've done a film with an original song in it. So a big shout out to them. They're wonderful, wonderful boys. The film gets its final look and sound thanks to the work of Ashish Pandya, who did the sound editing and mixing, and Sonu Singh, who did the color grading. So that's the crew. But I also have a long list of thank yous, and I'll just take another minute to do that. First of all the teachers, the staff, and the students of the 3 schools that I shot in, the families of the children who just allowed me into their homes with such generosity, and also, countless children and teachers who didn't find their way into the final film, but conversations with whom have been so important in, clarifying my ideas. So thank you to all of them. I would like to make a special mention of Natasha Joshi, who gave so freely of her time and took the trouble to help me to find the additional funding for the film so that it could take this shape. And she's the one who put me in touch with Mekin. So Natasha, thank you very much. I know we've never met in person thanks to COVID, but it really feels like I found a valuable supporter in her. And special thanks to Mekin Maheshwari, who believed it was important to support my vision of the film and gave so generously to it. And last but not the least, Rajiv Mehrotra, for being more than an exemplary producer. He's been supportive, flexible, generous. Like he said, he left me alone. And that's really such a valuable thing. And anything that a director can't ask for anything more than that. And particularly this year when, we've been hit by sort of completely unprecedented events which have impacted work in so many different ways. So thank you so much. Thank you for thinking of me to make this film. And thank you for creating the context that allowed my vision of the film to be realized. Thank you very much, Rajiv. I think you're on mute.
I think now it's time to sort of reflect, I think first on the film and then what its aspirations are and the issues it rages. And I'd just like to introduce the moderator of the film, Prachi, for the discussion today, Prachi Kalra. She teaches the bachelor's program in elementary education at Delhi University. She has a PhD in storytelling. I mean, this is something we can all, eternally learn about and learn from you. So thank you. And I hope we're going to hear wonderful stories from you this evening about the film. And she's interested in literacy and children's literature. So it's over to you, Prachi.
Thanks a lot. And let me begin by saying that, I'm just so happy to be here. And I loved the film. I told Samina, that it was a fantastic film and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and for many reasons. But we'll take that conversation forward. And let me begin by introducing 2 of our panelists, Abha Adams and Mani. So Abha Adams has been an innovative educationist for over 35 years. She's the former director of the Sri Ram schools and has been an education advisor to Step by Step Noida. She's also a leading consultant for educational training and development organizations. She's also worked with several organizations in the context of education. And uh, I'm sorry, my internet, yeah, so the internet connections are always a bit of a problem. Also, I'd like to mention that Professor Poonam Batra, who was to be on the panel, and Vikram Bhatt have not been able to make it to the panel for different COVID-related issues and problems. So we are definitely going to miss them. But let me move on also to introduce Mani. So Mani has been a teacher and is also the co-founder at Gubachi Learning Community, which strives to bring quality education to the underserved in peri-urban Bangalore. She's also implemented the Manimakali program in 4 government schools, and for me, like that's personally very interesting. So we will be speaking to Mani and Abha Adams about their experiences as teachers, as educationists in the context of the film. But let me begin by asking the first question to Samina. I've known Samina also because she made a lovely film on the BLEd program. And I remember that we once had a lovely discussion on how she had included the journey of the diverse students who join the BLEd program and how they grow with the program over the 4 years. And of course, I'm looking forward to Samina's lovely new book, Jamlo Walks, that I'm waiting to get my hands on it. But my first question to you, Samina, is that one aspect that I really loved about the film was how wonderfully you've been able to include children's voices and getting into the world of children is not very easy. Not only have you been able to include their voices, but you've also been able to capture the complexity of their own understanding of the happiness class, their own struggles and challenges. And also, I think you've been able to beautifully capture the challenges that teachers face, the pressures on them, their struggles, and the kind of varied work that is expected of them. So we'd love to hear from you as to how you managed to do that and what the film was like for you.
I know that even before I knew what I wanted to say, even before I knew what are the possibilities and challenges of this curriculum, I knew that I wanted the film to really make room for children's voices. I am a strong believer that we don't make enough room for them. We are there most of the time speaking on behalf of them. And a lot of my work is about making room for their own voices. And I work also with children to sort of engage in the ideas of self-expression, where I use a lot of like creative practice. So for me, the conversations with the children, I approached it in a similar kind of way, I didn't. So when you walk in with the camera, I mean, this film is not it doesn't follow a kind of observational verite style, right? I think that whenever we do walk in with the camera, there is something that changes and there is an element of performance that happens. And I take that on board in my practice. So what I wanted to do was to just create a kind of setting in which we could engage, in which we could talk to each other. So I used things that I do in sort of my workshops with them and in my teaching practice. So, sometimes it was just a simple sort of writing, list making exercises, sometimes simple art exercises. But I created a kind of context where they would be doing something, and was of course related to this idea of happiness. And then, we started talking around that, because I think even this is true even with adults. It's to be able to sort of have conversations that feel authentic is a complicated word, but that experience of at least that moment, that one is able to capture that with a certain degree of authenticity. So I think that doing that with the children, like having them do some stuff and then we're talking around it. So you're always approaching it laterally. It's not like straight on. And that I think mostly doesn't work in a kind of, documentary situation. We have to do that, particularly also with children. The thing about the teachers was that, so for me, I knew that, it's as Mekin said, that it's a work in progress. Rajiv said it's a work in progress. So I think that it's important that, in that work in progress, we recognize that, okay, these are the possibilities, but these are also the challenges. And I wanted the film to be able to show that complexity, but it's only possible to do that if we don't, I think, turn to villainizing, some of the characters who are in the game. And it's very easy, I think, to sort of, particularly in our government school system, to say, the teachers are not doing their job. And sure, there are many teachers who are not doing their job in government schools and private schools, or elsewhere outside of education. But if one doesn't want to do that, then we have to approach even the teachers with a kind of like, to understand their world with a wider lens. So it isn't just what they are in the classroom, but there's something else that also makes them what they are in the classroom. And I think that making the BLEd film has actually helped me in thinking about that, the BLEd program as well, sort of learning about that. And I think it had been quite instrumental in my being able to see the teacher not just as a teacher, but the teacher also as a person, and all the things that go into what she does then in the classroom.
So I thought that at this point we could watch a small clip from the film and take it forward from there. Yeah.
Yeah. One sec. Just give us a second. I'm just going to share my screen.
डर लगता है मैं पेपर कैसा आएगा, कैसे नंबर आएंगे,
I'll just take it.
कैसे नंबर
सीखना जरूरी है कि नंबर जरूरी है?
मैम मेरे लिए तो मैम सीखना जरूरी है। मैम डर लगता है मैं पेपर कैसा आएगा, कैसे नंबर आएंगे, अगर नंबर बेकार है तो मम्मी क्या कहेंगी। मैम डर लगने लगता है मैम एग्ज़ाम से पहले ही। मैम जब पेपर आता है ना, हम देखते हैं इतना आसान है ये, तो मैं फालतू का डर रहा था। और मैम एक दिन मैम ड्राइंग के पेपर में मैम हमसे मैम कलर ना ड्राइंग की फाइल पे गिर गया। मैंने सोचा मेरे नंबर गए सारे। मैं आराम से बैठ के लेट गया, थोड़ी देर सो ही गया मैं, आधे घंटे तक तो डर के मारे। फिर मैम जब उठा तो हमने मैम साफ वाफ करा। मैम मतलब 1 घंटा बाकी था, मैम साफ़ करा। मैम जब हमने बनाई ना मैम, इतनी अच्छी बन गई मेरी ड्राइंग। मैम 30 में से मैम 24 आ गए, और कहाँ हमने सोचे थे 10 भी नहीं आएंगे।
तो ये मतलब सीखना ही ज़रूरी नहीं है, नंबर भी ज़रूरी है
इसमें मैम मैम मेरे लिए मैम पता नहीं चलता मैम। मैम नंबर आएंगे तो मैम पास होंगे, मैम सीखेंगे तभी तो नंबर आएंगे। मैम जब मैम मम्मी मारती है ना तो मैम जब रोते हैं तो मैम कहती है मेरा प्यारा बेटा मत रो, मेरा प्यारा बेटा मत रो, तो मैम हमें मैम बहुत खुशी होती है। जब हम आइसक्रीम खाते हैं ना तो तब मम्मी कहती है मत खा तेरे जुकाम हो जाएगा, फिर भी हम खाते हैं। तब पापा रात को आके मेरे को डांटते हैं। फिर जब हम सो जाते हैं, फिर सुबह मम्मी जब दूध देती है ना कहती हैं पी ले पी ले, पापा कहते हैं पी ले 5 रुपये दूंगा, तब मुझे और खुशी होती है।
अच्छा ये बताओ, हैप्पीनेस सिखा सकते हैं?
मैम हाँ सिखा सकते हैं।
कैसे?
मैम मैम करके दिखाएं। स्ट्रेट सांस लो और सांस छोड़ो। पहले बाहर की आवाज़ों में ध्यान दो, फिर ध्यान अपनी सांसों में लाओ। खींचो छोड़ो। ये एक्टिविटी हम 2 मिनट तक करेंगे। धीरे से आँख खोलो। हाँ बस।
अब खुश हो?
यस मैम। मैम हाँ माइंड मैम मैम वो मतलब जो तनाव था मैम मैम हल्का हो गया।
ये वाली खुशी और जब मम्मी बोलती है मार के मेरा बेटा, कौन सी खुशी ज़्यादा अच्छी है?
मैम मेरे को तो मम्मी वाली खुशी ज़्यादा अच्छी लगती है।
Oops.
So thank you so much, Samina, for playing that. For me, this if an otherwise also the film this part beautifully summarizes how uh, this child is negotiating how this child is negotiating um, both the happiness, the pleasure that the happiness classes bring to him, the peace that it brings to him, but he also talks about his own challenges. As a student, where he's caught between parents' expectations, the fear of exams, ensuring that he gets marks in the exams. But he also talks about the idea that for him, learning is perhaps more important than exams, but marks are important. So I feel that this child talks about the happiness class in many complex ways. And over here, I wanted to kind of invite Abha and ask her, as an educationist, Abha, what have been your experiences working with children? You've also worked with some of the best private schools. And would you say that the challenges that children face in the private schools that you worked with are any different? Or would you say that they are very similar? And also, as someone who's worked with teacher education programs, so the related question is, how would you suggest teacher education programs and teachers kind of negotiate the many hats that they juggle, which is ensuring that children do well in the exams, ensuring that parents are satisfied, but also looking at the socio-emotional needs of children. So how would you kind of respond to both these questions which are linked?
Thanks, Prachi. I'll take the first question and try my level best to encompass everything in the second one as well. I've been in the last couple of years engaged in an extremely interesting piece of writing, It was due for publication this year, but unfortunately, for publication last year. I beg your pardon, I've lost track of time. But because of the pandemic, it has been shifted to next year. And I saw so many changes in my capacity as an educator, primarily who's worked, yes, in the private sector, but over the last 5 years, more and more with the public school system, since I'm vice chair of a trust called Abha Adams, which works with curriculum and with teacher training. And my focus was to look at what were the pressure points on children. And when yes, I loved Samina, and I think captured those pressure points really well. But the pain points for children in so-called privileged schools are about pressure that comes from examinations, fear that clouds the mind, fear that leads to anxiety. Up to 50% of students in the middle school were suffering from anxiety, and they had the, let's say, the resources to be able to go to therapy and so on and so forth. Can you believe children as young as 11 needing therapy to take care of their anxiety and their panic attacks? And that was stemmed from this fear of, I'm not good enough. I will not do well enough. Whatever I do, and these are, many of them are bright, wonderful young people, but they don't have that sense of self. They don't have a sense of acceptance. In the film, we saw how communities were not being accepted. Diversity was not being accepted. Here also, in the so-called privileged schools, diversity is not accepted. And the diversity is also based on class. So if you are coming from a middle class family, you lack acceptance from those who have so much that it is really quite uncomfortable. But I found that they were, yes, there was anxiety, there was stress. Parental aspirations were completely unrealistic and for all the wrong reasons. There was also a huge pressure to be, they're all digital, right? Everybody's on the digital platforms, and they see perfection in a way that cannot be matched. They want that life, which is actually fraudulent. It's a stencil that somebody has copied. They want holidays like. And if you don't conform to that stereotype that you see on the social media platforms, then you don't feel good enough. When you don't feel good enough, you start cutting, self-injury, self-harm. You go into depression. If you're overweight, you're not accepted. If you're not fair, thin, and lovely, you're not accepted. As a young man, if you're not a jock or sportsman, then you're not accepted. If you're creative and poetic, you're not accepted. So these struggles continue. Now, for me, I felt that teachers play such a critical role here. And the focus in the schools that I've worked with has been to try and create safe spaces where the student-teacher relationship can give that support, that acknowledgement. Every child is different. Every child wants to be acknowledged. Every child wants to be respected. Every child would like to learn without fear. Every child would like to be able to speak up without fear in class and know that their teacher has their back. And when the child sees that the teacher is accepting, respectful, caring, acknowledging him or her for her strengths and abilities, then that child models those same things when he or she is at home and in real life. And these safe spaces can only be done if the professional development of teachers is done in a way that points out to them how important it is for them to have empathy, compassion, and kindness. And if they reflect these qualities, the, the importance of being able to understand the other, be able to sit in the other person's shoes, to accept and embrace is critical. And if the teacher models that, then the students imbibe that. And I found that this is one shift that needs to happen in the teacher training uh, pedagogies and practice.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I do see the point that you're making about uh, finding acceptance. Um, um, so at this point, I'd like to move to Mani. So Mani, as a teacher, as an educator who's worked with underserved children, what do you feel have been some of your challenges in the context of the socio-emotional needs of the students that you've taught? So what have been your experiences as a teacher?
Um, I have worked with children, privileged children, for 5 years before we started our organization. And the first year that I taught in the class were children class 1 and 2. And actually, contrary to what I had experienced in the private school, as well as contrary to what Abha had said, I did not, I do not see any dearth for happiness in the children. Meaning, they were the children in the government schools that we work in are mostly children of migrant laborers, construction laborers, and people who work in the road laying and things like that. So they hardly any local child from Bangalore is in the government school. So it's the poorest of the poor. And most of the children are latchkey children. So their parents leave really early in the morning, and the oldest child is taking care of the oldest child, who's probably in class 2, is taking care of her 2 younger siblings, and goes back home to literally open the door of her house and get around to doing housework till the parents come back. So these children were resilient, were taught me a whole lot of things. In fact, for me, it was, if I ever were to allowed to be a parent all over again, I would do it so differently, because they were independent. They were the, the harmony that I saw in among the children. So almost all the children, 99% of the children, are either Dalit or Muslim, and first generation learners. Most of them first generation learners. No pressure at all. No pressure from the parents. It the For them, what started out as a meal for the child, the midday meal for the child, because the child comes to school, the midday meal is in place, and there's a safe place for the child to be in when the parents are out at work. So then our attempt is to say, okay, how do we facilitate learning in this child who does not lack any confidence, in this child who is who knows much more than a child who goes to, who knows life's lessons much better than any other child, middle class, upper middle class child. So being a teacher in a class like that was super easy. We had we had celebrations together. We had children being very matter of fact about So there were children who would work in other people's houses to come to school in the morning. And if a child came late, I'll say, what happened, why didn't she come? Oh, I think she's held up in that owner's house that she's working in. Everything was so matter of fact. So, and learning, when it came to learning itself, teaching learning of math and Kannada became super easy because it was new. And what was best, so there's no pressure. The parent is not saying, where is your homework, what have you done, how many marks have you got? Also, because the Karnataka, the curriculum in the Karnataka state in government schools is called Nallikali, joyful learning. And it's learned based largely on the Montessori methodology, but learned from the Rishi Valley school, and their teachers have been trained. So since 1995, this curriculum has been in place. It's so the curriculum itself, the classroom dynamics itself in the primary school, this is from class 1 to 3. There are no benches, so children are not looking at at the back of other children's heads. The teacher is not standing in the front and writing on the blackboard. It's truly this, the teacher is this facilitator in the class. Children move from competency to competency. Children are in charge, literally in charge of their own progress, because they have the progress report put up where they go. And so it's a wonderful curriculum which does not allow for any discrimination. There's no question. So if a child is absent, and these are migrant children, so they will go back to their village for a festival, they will go back for for a mela, they will go back, during harvest season, and they will come back maybe a month later, 15 days later, 3 months later. But the curriculum is designed in such a way that the child picks off from where he or she left off. So she's not thinking, "Arey Baba, I have missed out on all this that has happened." She's not. So she's literally going on her own uh, learning trajectory. So there's no pressure of that sort, even from the curriculum. So, and I've had the good luck of working with children from class 1 to 3. So I do not see that at all in among these children. It is truly the curriculum is truly joyful because every class starts with songs, and there are 4 subjects: it's math, Kannada, EVS, and English. Every subject has about 50 songs. There's music, it starts with music, then they have puppet shows weaved in. It's wonderfully designed. Of course, it's about how the teacher takes it into the class and all that. But since there's a dearth of teachers in the schools that we're working in, so it's our own teachers are working in those schools. The learning is seamless. There are no tests. The children are not sitting and saying, "Arey Baba, my." So it's their evaluation is happening through games, through just as a part of it. That's it. There's no feeling of. So it's a wonderful thing for a teacher as well to be in the situation, because the teacher is not feeling super pressured. The only thing we added to it was that we know that the child has gone to her Uru. There's no saying you can't go to your village, because that's a given. That's their home, that's their culture, that's the warmth which Bangalore does not offer. So when they come back, is what we do is we just have remedial classes for the children, and then they come and they pick up. So as far as picking up on the curriculum goes, it's just they pick up and then they continue on that. So the socio, I never saw any problems with array. Which I might see in this one doesn't study well, or that one is this one is whatever, from a different caste. I mean, that just did not. There's no scope for that at all. Oh, this girl, or she has no whatever. Girls, boys, everyone together, and their groups. The way they're grouped also is the group is also not static. It's constantly changing. So the curriculum allows for this kind of a social learning. The emotional learning part of it, I was, that's one of the reasons, in fact, I was very curious about this, the curriculum that I picked up and read it, is I kept thinking that what is it that we could add to, if there's any way that we could supplement the, emotional, um, maybe some bit of mindfulness and things like that. But these children, I, um, I don't really see, I feel there's nothing much we can do. I don't think we should meddle with them too much, because they're fine. They're just that little bit of facilitation as far as their curriculum goes, they're doing fantastically. Of course, the pressure will start once they go to 6th and 7th and whatever else. But I'm in a happy place with children, primary school children, um, going about their learning in a very seamless, happy, non pressured, fearless atmosphere.
So thanks a lot, Mani. There have been lots of comments from participants who are kind of admiring the flexibility of the system that you're talking about. So at this point, perhaps, Rajiv, I thought I'd ask you something. So Mani was talking about a much more flexible system which focuses on actually what the children bring to the class, their own lived reality, and how the education system can adapt to that. But my question is that is it also because uh, in this system that Mani is talking about, is the pressure missing because also the children are kind of at the moment out of the more conventional system. So my question to you therefore is that Samina's film also talks about the idea that the happiness class puts a lot of onus on the individual child and the teacher without so much, without the education system addressing the challenges of competitiveness, examinations, fulfilling parental expectations. In that context, how do you balance the onus on the individual child and the teacher to be mindful, to be happy within the context of a system which is based on competition, which is based on examinations, performance, marks?
Look, I'm a communications person and a sort of, how do I put it, a sadhaka in some ways, and it is not quite sure where to begin. What I think what came out very powerfully in Samina's film is that when this child talks about his fear of the examination and the outcome, and is then able to understand the process of fear and that the fear was unfounded. Now, that is the greatest gift that we can give to the child. If we eliminate fear, then I'm not sure the child is being trained for life, because life circumstances are going to throw up a whole range of unpredictable experiences, and which no education system can predict. And so I think that is the value. And we have underemphasized the qualities of the teacher. And we look at curriculum and we look at paradigms that the teacher can follow. Now, if the teacher is not trained to be able to experience equanimity in the classroom, and to be able to be a person of who will sort of then transmit by who they are rather than what they teach and what they practice, I think the enterprise will fail. So I think we have been much too obsessed with curricula and systems and processes, and not the qualities of the teacher as a human being. And so what tends to happen is that because we make it mechanistic, that you input X, output Y. The human condition isn't quite like that. And I remember, I did a film decades ago in the Krishnamurti schools, and I was in Rishi Valley, and they were going to play. They were going to have their athletic competition, and someone was going to win, and someone was going to lose, no matter how you look at it. And I think again, it was the quality of the teacher who, when the question came up, was able to create the space for a conversation about it without seeking to resolve it. And I think that ability to create the space where not every human predicament can be resolved with an answer is a quality we need to nurture in the teacher, and then it will begin to transmit to the student. And so curriculum are merely a means to an end, but unfortunately in most systems we treat it as an end. कि curriculum में डाल दिया, आओ भूल गए उसके बाद. And you tell the teacher to do or what to do and how to react. And I think there is also this aspect that, she spoke about resilience. Now, training in resilience is nurtured by training in resolving and addressing conflict, not by eliminating conflict. So if we have a very sort of cushy, wonderful, ideal, friendly, harmonious environment, I'm not sure the child is being prepared for the future. And I mean, just a very small personal narrative that I often share about my own experience as an adult. So when my mother was dying, and I was devastated and weeping. So I go to my teacher, the Dalai Lama, and I say, my mother is dying and I'm devastated. What do I do? He says, meditate on death. Now that sounds rather a cruel thing to say. Now there will be young children who will have to confront the death of their parents. This is time of COVID. And we can't mollycoddle them into saying, no, it's okay, it's not going to happen. So that ability to nurture in the child a reality check is extremely important. And the starting point has to be the teacher. And I haven't heard an emphasis on the teacher in this conversation. I think the second aspect that we have to identify is that what are the resistors to transformation or change or behavior change for the child. And the resistors are, extend far beyond the classroom. And that is that what is happening in the child's home, what is happening on television, what is the child being circumscribed with. So when we talk about mindfulness, and what was so heartening and I found illuminating about the film, that we find that children are, what is being nurtured in the children is an awareness of what's going on. And that's the best we can hope for. That if the child knows what's going on, I'm experiencing fear, but the fear was unfounded, and sometimes it will be founded. We've done it. We cannot anticipate every little nuance of an unfolding future. We cannot institutionalize everything. And so I think that, I think the film needs very careful looking at, because it has captured these ideas and nuances without verbalizing them. And if there is a limitation to the film, it is that unless you're sensitive to that, you don't see it. And you just think, oh, what a lovely bright kid. But the reason I treasure, and this is also as much, Samina is not the teacher, she's a filmmaker, and she brings the sensitivity and sensibility to the film that then articulates it. And hence, I think a conversation around what the film reveals is a very valuable, teaching aid for teachers. Sorry, I've spoken too much.
So there's a lovely question in the chat box, and perhaps Rajiv, you could take that up as well. It
Oops.
says, "How can we differentiate between happiness and peace? Should learners be striving for happiness or for peace?" And there's a part two. It says, "At the time of the pandemic, when all of us are going through a lot of anxiety and fear, how should we incorporate happiness curriculum in our own lives?" As individuals and as teachers.
I mean, we can spend a lot of time on verbal gymnastics, happiness, peace, what is happiness, what is peace. I think it really is, the ability to sort of ride the waves of life without getting unduly sort of thrown off balance. I think that is the aspiration, whether we're human beings or whether we're children, human beings, whether we're playing with pets or all sentient beings. And it is that training that I think that education needs to provide. And that's why I said right in the beginning that the happiness has been made a dirty word by the American Constitution. It just sort of guarantees that you will be happy, forever and ever. Of course not. I mean, how can you not be, how can you not be devastated and sad if you lose a parent or a sibling or a spouse? That is a part of the human condition. And we have to have those emotions, they're legitimate emotions. So we have to train the child, or we have to set an example to the child about the legitimacy of these emotions. And not be obsessed with, it's a happy child, he can cope with, no matter how things are going, he's sort of very happy and smiling. That's garbage. And so that connects. And I think what, the curriculum that we have been trying to nurture, the building blocks of that are to try and give children a sense of the true nature of reality. And the pillars of that true nature of reality sound abstract, but they're things that children can respond to. And so that, the very important one is impermanence. Everything changes. Now, we don't have to look at it as some grandiose philosophical idea. I mean, children recognize things change. They buy a cell phone and they buy cell phones very early, that one day that cell phone is going to get spoiled and discarded, and they get a new one. Or their friendships will not be permanent. And today you're fighting with a child, and then tomorrow you're friends with another child. So we can nurture in them the idea of impermanence or interdependence. Look, your life, not just your happiness, depends on so many other people. Now, the minute we recognize that, the Coca-Cola we like, or the ice cream that we cherish, is made by people from, cows. Well, they don't use cow's milk and ice cream anymore, but from the vanaspati they use, or whatever, that these things that I consume come from so many different people. So these are the building blocks of a sensibility. So we look at it, we call it wisdom and method. So what we try and share with the child is partly the wisdom, the understanding through mind of this matrix, and then the method, and what we can do in the classroom through exercises and mindfulness and the qualities of the teacher is to help imbue them with a sense of the method. So the method and the wisdom, the mind and the logic, train them to deal with reality and to work with reality as it unfolds. And we have to be deeply conscious of the resistors to this simultaneously. And I think so. This principle, it starts with it's a very it's so wonderful to see it happening with children, because they come from it with far less baggage, unless they are, as many of them are, and as Mani was talking about, from their backgrounds. And so they've already developed a quality of resilience when they enter that space. And so we have to give it, we in a sense have to train the more privileged with this quality of resilience, so they just don't crumble when they confront that. So the aspiration of our efforts, or of His Holiness's efforts here, are to find ways in which we can teach these through reason and logic, and the methods that will give them an experience of love, of compassion. And I mean, I just want to sign off, but if you haven't looked at this, Harvard University have done this happiness study over 80 years. I don't know how many of you are aware of this. It's an iconic study. And what does it tell you? That, people, they've tracked these people for 80 years, generations of researchers. And what it's telling us is that people who have been able to manage their relationships, that's the single most important factor, have far greater, better health, whether it's a relationship with their wives, with their families, and are, inverted commas, lead far more, productive lives with greater equanimity. So what can we do to nurture in children, so the relationships between them? So what we're looking at here is sort of both modern wisdom, conventional wisdom, the methodologies of doing this with great humility and a great willingness to surrender to its unfolding, and without the arrogance of certitude. I have this system, we're going to do it and you're going to change. And I think that the problem has been that we were responding really to, when we wanted to sort of try and inspire this, and we don't want to be dictatorial about it at all, that this works and that doesn't. And we thought that we would first bring together people from diverse backgrounds and traditions, religion, faiths, disciplines, and methods of teaching. And we found nobody wanted to engage in something that wasn't their own, didn't carry their own brand. So, Mr. Sisodia has developed this, adapted this, and I hope that it'll continue to evolve. I mean, we're not attached, just having catalyzed it. That's our only role. We're not attached. I mean, Dalai Lama doesn't have a figure in it. Buddhism doesn't have a figure in it. And it has to, respond to the experience of its implementation. And that spirit is very important. Sorry, carrying poles to Newcastle with all of you educationists.
So there are several comments actually on some of the ideas that Rajiv has presented. But I was thinking, if as a panel, would there be something that we might kind of suggest to the Delhi government, for them to be able to take this forward, especially considering that we live during unusual pandemic times when so many children have been left out. But even in the context of the happiness curriculum, what are some suggestions that we might want to make to the Delhi government for them to be able to kind of take this forward? Samina, would you like to say something on that?
Yeah, sure. So I feel there was one thing which I wanted to sort of say, which is linked to what Rajiv was saying. And so, this idea of impermanence and the idea of, happiness being sort of transitory. To me, I feel that children also have an instinctive understanding of that. In the film, we've used the metaphor of the bubble. And the children who are chasing that bubble, the bubble will disappear, but in that running after the bubble, there is also joy, and it's a fragile thing which is not going to last. So I think that there is a kind of that what children bring to the classroom. So they're not empty vessels, they come with a lot already, they
Yes.
have their own experiences, and there is an understanding that they have. I think the role of the teacher then becomes one of facilitating through conversation the ability to be able to perhaps step back and see that, from some distance, and to be able to reflect upon it. So to me, this should be, and I think what Mani has spoken about also kind of then reinforces this idea that it is something that needs to be sort of integrated through the school day, through the school year. It can't just be something which comes as a small module, if you're not going to, as you said yourself, that if we are not going to actually tackle all the other systemic issues along the way. So but maybe you want to have that class, happiness class, because the children are they're quite happy. They're happy to have that. It is a time in the day that they are enjoying, because there is no agenda. But I don't think that you can just rely on that. That you need to be able to. So, sorry, Prachi, you're saying something. I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Oh, no, sorry. I just felt for a moment that my internet connection was a little unstable. Please carry on.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, I feel that, these bigger kind of like systemic issues, they need to be addressed at all of these levels. What Mani has spoken about, what Abha spoke about, that's the role of the teacher and the teacher education. So there's things that need to be done at different levels, and we need to work across all of those. Yeah.
Mani, Abha, anything that you would like to add?
Yes, I would just like to say that, the pivot, keep coming back to this game changer, the person, the catalyst is the teacher. You have the right person there who is holding you. Okay. It all, you learn to ride the waves that Rajiv was talking about. My concern has been for the longest time that we expect the teacher to hold the student, but who is holding the teacher? Where is the teacher's support? And
Yes.
when we see the pressures on teachers, I will never forget that in the film. She said, I wake up at 4:30 in the morning.
Yes.
I first make sure I cook for my children. I come to school, and our expectation is she's going to give that same. She'll bring her all into the classroom, okay, and be there for the children, and yet complete the administrative tasks, yet make sure that assessment is done, yet fill the registers. And where is the support for? And then go back home, do the rest. And I don't see systemically that support for the teacher. And I feel that is a huge loss, because unless we build that in through coaches and mentors, unless we make our systems less test-centric and shift more to formative assessment, and unless we, frankly, we recognize the role that teacher plays, and it's been undermined for far too long. Unless we reinstitute that in a number of dozen ways, I think that we will not be able to manage this. And I agree with Samina that what we are attempting to do in the happiness class is to get children to center. That will only happen if the teacher is,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And that can happen through the day, as Mani said. So through every class. But yes, the children look forward to this one particular 35 minutes, which is great. But it can permeate all, so a math teacher doesn't feel, I don't need to, this is not my task. I am here to make sure that they understand this equation. No, you're here to make sure that everybody understands it right, skill and competency, but how they understand the pedagogy that you use to bring people together to be able to do it is also critical.
So I would like to add that the teacher, her relationship with the child is of supreme importance, because And for that, her awareness of where the child is coming from, of the child's reality at home, about as a teacher in the film also says, I know both the parents are working, and they, so that awareness, and constantly keeping that in mind in her interactions with the children, and that awareness, sensitivity, and compassion. And that compassion can come only if she is, like you said, she is in in a secure place herself, in her mind, and that she has someone looking out for her, that she that someone understands that she also starts at 4:30 in the morning and various other things, and has to do her exam. I mean, when I was watching what your the teacher in the school was doing, I had to really stop for a minute, because she has to go back and then work on her on exams to become a permanent teacher, and she is negotiating a whole lot of things. So if there's someone who is, she knows that someone is looking out for her, and has her interests at heart, then overall, I mean, on the whole, I think it will be a wonderful space for the child, for the teacher, the parent who knows that the child is cared for, a wonderful space for the child to grow in. Yeah.
I think as a teacher educator, I would love to underline all that Mani and Abha have said, and there are comments, appreciating that, and Abha's idea that who is holding the teacher. That's something that we need to look at. Who is holding the teacher? So as a teacher educator, I know the kinds of systemic pressures on my students also, when they are interning, even when they become teachers. So I think another, like Mani said, that noticing the teacher's day, the pressures on her time, the demands uh, from her that the system makes, in terms of all the administrative and teaching tasks that she has to do. I think it's also important that the system also trusts the teacher more. I think that is something that we need to work on a little bit more. How do we get also the system to be a little accountable to the teacher?
And I think, Prachi, sorry to interrupt, but if the
Yes,
system
go ahead.
if the system were to trust the teacher, then perhaps the teacher would trust the children more.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. So do we have time to take a few more questions? Do we have time for that?
Maybe another 5 minutes.
There are more comments though. Yeah. We have another 5 minutes. Okay, let me quickly. So there was an interesting comment from somebody called Shilpa, who said that, yeah, so she said that I'm working in a public sector school in Bihar, and I want to share my recent experience with some older children on exams. And she says that as recent exams were cancelled, children were really happy and confident that they would pass without even studying. So I'm afraid that this happiness felt after the exams got cancelled is what we are not able to give in a regular classroom. So I thought that was an interesting comment. And there's another comment to say that the teacher is a very important person, sometimes even more important than the parent. And there was another interesting question. Let me just go down. Um, so, um, so, um, so somebody called Uma. sorry, I didn't get the whole name, says that the idea of riding over the waves of life, do we need to train how to ride the waves, or does it come automatically through facing the waves? Because each child comes with a different makeup of life, be it culture, experiences, and parental background. There was one question for money. Let me go back to that. Um, Yeah, so this question was specifically for Bunny, and it says, can you see the implications of the happiness curriculum in a way that can help children in transitioning from Nali Kali primary school curriculum to an upper primary curriculum that also brings in socio-emotional and physical changes with their development, along with higher order cognitive expectations? And this is from Sonia Parashar.
I lost part of the question. I couldn't hear it. Can I see it on the chat box? Will I see it on the chat box?
Can I repeat it? It's a little further up the chat box.
Okay.
Came a while earlier.
Let me do that. Yeah.
And it says, shall I repeat that again? It says,
Yes,
can you see the implications of the happiness curriculum in a way that can help children in transitioning from Nali Kali primary school curriculum to the upper primary curriculum, which also brings in their socio-emotional, physical changes, along with their development towards higher order cognitive abilities?
So so I've just briefly seen you're talking about the happiness curriculum, the Delhi happiness curriculum. Yes, so some of their practices that I've been looking at. In fact, they're part of their syllabus that I've been looking at. Much of it is in practice in the whole Nalikali system. I mean, where it is happening perfectly. It is a lot of importance given to self-learning, peer learning, and all these other things, which when the child transitions to class 4 and 5, if he's an independent learner, if he is, and their whole EVS curriculum where the child is talking about himself, his likes, and I can draw lots of parallels with what the curriculum here has with what the Nalikali, the joyful learning curriculum has. So in fact, I was trying to see where, what else can we add to it. And I think some more study of it and some more speaking to teachers in Delhi would help. But this if there is a child going to a confident child moving to class 4, confident in who she is, confident about her ability, confident about her where she is in the class. I mean, her as a person in the class. That would be the first step, I would say, to help this child transition into, an older classroom. And because this child I see is very aware of herself, very aware of where her peers in the class are coming from, and strong in her, is happy to say, I can't do this. So if this child is able to continue in this fashion in the older classes, I would say, and if it just strengthens this confidence in the child, I think adding aspects of mindfulness, for example, where the child is which also to some extent is there. I mean, there are this 2-minute silence and breathing that happens in this thing, but it's all completely lost when the child goes to the higher class. So I just, I don't know how. I feel if this stage is set for the child in the primary classes, it will be definitely a step to help this child maneuver her way through all these other things that come up in senior classes. I could be very simplistic and very naive in my belief. We've been working with these children for the past 5 years. The children, our first child is now, first batch of children are in class 5. I still see that child who was with me in class 1 in class 5. So I mean, we really need to see what happens as they go to the higher classes.
So thanks, Mani. And I can see that there are a lot many more questions and comments, but I think we've kind of run out of time completely. So I'll hand over back to Rajiv.
You're on mute, sir.
Mute, Rajiv. Yeah, you need to unmute yourself.
I'm really grateful for this evening. I have learned so much from your perspectives, and what can I say? We celebrate all of you, and you're engaging in this enterprise of education. And I think that if all the teachers were like you, we may not have had the need for this discussion. And so congratulations, Samina. And we really hope that the film wins a lot of awards and accolades, yes, which you deserve. And I think most importantly, that the film furthers the discourse that brings us all together here this evening. And that was the aspiration of the film. And you have done a fabulous job. And thank you for the panel, for your insights and wisdom, and for creating this space and opportunity. We've had we've had more than 100 people listening to us. And I think those are the 100 ambassadors who will go out into the world with your collective wisdom and message. Thank you. And Samina, we have to start discussing your next film.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Goodbye, good night, and thank you.